What's up, Indies? So sorry for my delay today. We have had some technical issues, but I'm here now, you're here now, and we're going to kill it today. So today, contrary to the title that is showing right now, it is a live Q&A session, which means that we're going to be talking about whatever is burning in your head at this moment. So as a reminder, our pro members, which is all of you, can log in to indiepreneur.io/INDIESLIVE/watch page to leave your questions in the Facebook comments block. I still will get to live questions, but I always prioritize the people who planned ahead and put their questions in there. So if you want to make sure that you're on the first question list, that's where you want to go. So it's in your Indie Pro training vault, and you can go to Indies Live, and it'll go right there. Easy peasy. How is your week going? I'm so happy you're here. My week has been crazy. It's Wednesday. So I'm excited to dig in. So the first question I have is from Taylor Bradshaw. He says, "Hey Corrin, green light warmth boost question. Is there a way to promote an existing Instagram post from mobile using a green light warmth boost audience? When I select promote on mobile, I can use automatic or create your own, but cannot access pre-existing audiences. Thanks." Right. So if you've been in the green light warmth boosting training, you'll see how I go through on mobile, how you can post something and then boost it from mobile if you're on the go. We don't recommend running ads usually in mobile because the options are very limited, but it's still a great, if you go through that training, it'll show you how to do it. Now, the problem is that Instagram posts do not work the same way. If you advertise on Instagram natively from within the app, it's not going to do the right thing. You're not going to be able to select the right audience. They can only let you, blast it to millions of people based on a couple of interests. So the way that we recommend doing it is, if you are on mobile, first initiating from your Facebook post and then going into Business Manager in the standard version on desktop. So if you're looking to specifically promote Instagram posts, you're going to want to do that from the standard desktop setting. So that is what I would recommend. I'm getting a message that we are not going through on YouTube, and I can't imagine why that would be, but I'm going to check it out right now. Troubleshooting on the spot. That's what we do. If any of you live stream, you know how it is, right? So let's make sure that all our lovely indies can see what they need to see. So let me take a look here. Anybody else use the live studio in the last 6 months? I do not like it compared to others. So, all right. So let's go here. And hopefully we can get this thing to go. Yeah, I think we might just have the wrong link going on here. All right. Gracie's messaging me, taking care of you guys, making sure that everything is going as expected. So, all right. Fresh Goods Music says, for me, it goes black and cuts out. Guys, we just changed over. I convinced Circa that we needed to change from Caster to Restream, and eating my words right now. So what do you guys use to live stream? I use Ecamm as instead of OBS, I use Ecamm as my desktop, and then I use Restream to post to multiple places. I love that setup, but some people, not so much. So what's your setup? Because maybe we should try more. So, all right. Well, I'm going to keep plugging along because, I don't want everybody to wait. So if you're on YouTube and you're like, what's happening? You can always go to the pro group on Facebook, which I know you have access to because you're a pro member. So I'm going to continue on with what I was saying. So with Greenlight Warmth Boosting, if you're using an Instagram existing post, you're going to want to do that from the desktop version of Business Manager. And the reason why is because you can pick all of your audiences and really get into your Greenlight Warmth audience or add other factors to it. And from there, you can select an existing Instagram post. So you're not going to be able to do that from mobile. Unfortunately, that's just not a feature that Facebook has brought into the mobile version just yet. You can do it in the Facebook Ads mobile app, but it is not. You don't want to do that. Trust me. It's kind of messy. So that is why you're having problems, Taylor, finding your audience. I would recommend you go to the dashboard. And in all honesty, the way that Instagram populates in Business Manager, especially if the post is a video, it takes a certain period of time for Facebook to bring in that data anyway. So, you may go select an existing post and Facebook will give you a warning that, the video needs to be processed, blah, blah, blah. It'll give you one of those orange warning signs, which if you've ever been in any of my trainings or on any of my live streams, I say ignore those yellow things usually because normally they're an error or it's something temporary and it'll clear up. The red warning signs are what you have to watch out for. So, so that is the answer to that question, Taylor. I hope that helps. All right. So next up is Kyle Kraft, one of our favorites. He says, question about Fan Finder headline testing for you. Shouldn't we be going with whatever headline provides to lowest cost per 75% view, as opposed to whichever ends up getting the most impressions / budget usage in the test, as outlined in the Fan Finder training, if those are different? It seems to me that going with the headline that provides the cheapest cost per 75% view would be the way to go. Please clarify. All right. So it really depends, right? And neither is wrong. So I don't think that it is baseless for you to decide that you want to choose a headline that has the lowest cost for 75% view, although that can depend heavily on what length your video is, right? So now when we're talking about the most impressions and the budget usage, there's two reasons why that might make sense. First off, if you're using campaign level optimization, the campaign is finding people who will watch the video, right? And I know you're saying, but it's only optimizing for 15 seconds of continued view. And that is true. But what it also means is that post has a lot of data because of how much data has now been sent to that ad, versus if you have, let's say you have 14 ad sets and there's one where the cost per 75% view is only 20% of the other ones that are running. It still is going to be, everything is cheap right at the top or really expensive. When you turn on a campaign and you turn on ad sets, the first 24 to 48 hours has no indication of how that thing necessarily is going to be doing unless you're using this campaign budget optimization. So if it's only spent, say, $2 on one ad set, which is giving you really cheap 75% views, but it's run $100 on another one, that $100 ad set has more data to work with, right? So your cost per 75% view is actually going to be more accurate. So I would recommend it really is a personal choice. Generally, I do like to look at my cost per 75% view, but also I trust the algorithm that it's finding good people. And if it's putting a lot of budget on one ad set, it usually means that your engagement rate is higher. There's more factors to it, right? How long are most people watching the video? How many of them are commenting? How many are sharing, right? And so all of those variables are the ones that Facebook sees, and only some of them are what Facebook tells us. So I essentially trust the algorithm that it's choosing the right one. Every once in a while, in some deeper level campaigns like conversion campaigns or lead campaigns, I might try to override the algorithm, and sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. So you just got to use your best judgment possible. But yeah, I think neither has to be totally wrong. You just need to know what your objective is. So if your objective is more engagement, the engagement rating may be higher on that video. So go ahead and dig more into the columns, right? You've obviously, when you go into Business Manager, it defaults to performance. And then we look at video engagement, right? Which gives you your percentages breakdown. But also take a look at how many page likes it garnered, how many shares it garnered, the comments, things like that. And see what those costs look like against each other, because you may find that you're getting more auxiliary benefit than just video views when you are choosing that headline that is getting the most budget. So I hope that helps. Next, we've got Steve Mann. Lots of talk in the group lately about various checkout options, and I know they all do things a little differently. So to take some of the "it depends" out of the equation with a WordPress setup and confidence in being able to rig whatever an Elementor, what's the go-to tech stack? Common components to choose from seem to be Thrivecart, WooFunnels, Shopify plus plugins, or WooCommerce. More generally is whatever stack is best, significantly better than just Shopify and some plugins, as you and Jack mentioned in the podcast a few weeks back. Or would Shopify plus our marketing tactics get us to demonstrating a demand that can be leveled up to the more robust funnels? Trying to dial in the minimum viable product shop costs. Right. And so what that all boils down to is Steve is like, okay, I'm willing to pay for things that work. I don't want to pay more than I have to get what works, right? So it sounds like Steve is on a WordPress site using Elementor as his theme. So I would say in your situation, Steve, WooFunnels is, it's very similar to how we talk about ClickFunnels or how we talk about Thrivecart, right? It is something that keeps people on a very focused path. My Thrivecart is doing wonders for me right now because it's just a simple, do you want this thing? Yeah. Do you want to bump it? Awesome. Takes them to the next page. Do you want to buy this too? Because it's cool. Here's a fancy little add-on for you. So that kind of funnel progression is very valuable if you are planning on running funnel-based stuff, which in theory is one of the most productive ways to generate revenue, especially in the beginning stages of your customer acquisition. It's, really interesting to just, put them all in a row, right? And up that order volume from a single user as far as you can. Now, that said, WooCommerce and Shopify are very similar in that they are more like store layouts. WooCommerce and Shopify, I think, struggle similarly in how they struggle with any kind of funnel buildup on their own right out the box. You have to add plugins. You need to really mess with the formatting quite a bit. So they're not really built to do that. So I wouldn't say that, this is what I would say. I would say that Thrivecart, WooFunnels, not ClickFunnels as far as I'm concerned, but a lot of people are still using ClickFunnels and that works for them. So no judgment. But those are the things that I would recommend if you only have a few products. You probably don't need a store, right? You can put those things in these funnels and move people through those funnels, set up different project pages and set up the funnels, or for one-off purchases. So let's say you have like 3 albums and a t-shirt. You could put the 3 albums in that funnel process, and then you could make a product page just for the shirt and not include it in a funnel. You could do that with any of those funnely tools. Funnely. Sounds fun. Now, as far as these stores, if you have lots of products, if you're trying to offer, 5 or 6 different albums that you may have from the past, or many different variants. Let's say you have a t-shirt in 3 colors and then 5 sizes per shirt. You're going to want something that's more like a store for that, because a lot of these funnels aren't really built to deal with that many variants. You have to choose, it's the black t-shirt in these sizes, right? So it really just depends on what your product line looks like. So I would say with WordPress and Elementor, WooCommerce is free at first, I believe, unless that's changed recently. So, you could use that, but if you want something with a smaller catalog and a more linear purchase path, I'd go with WooFunnels. Go ahead and add that. And we have a great indie deal on that. We have a yearly license deal in your indie deals section for WooFunnels, but that's for a year. And I think Jack is actually in negotiation to get that like monthly and quarterly versions of it for our indies. So let's send Jack some closer vibes on that. So I hope that's helpful to you and others. So, all right, Aviva's next. Hi, Corrin. Do you have any experience with / thoughts on SoundCloud's repost select team? I don't. So I would hate to speculate, but SoundCloud's tight. I know I should have more than that, but I don't actually have any further thoughts on that. I mean, I will say that my music is on SoundCloud. It's available for people who dig SoundCloud. I have a Bandcamp store. You guys know I'm not a Bandcamp fan. I really am not, actually. But I still have this stuff there. I have had more customers in the last 3 weeks than I have monthly listeners on Spotify, right? So even though I don't use SoundCloud primarily, or I don't use Spotify primarily, I still have it there for the people who like it. So now the thing about SoundCloud, I have seen some of their upsell kind of versions, the different services that they have, and I haven't heard anything tight about it, but I don't want to comment specifically on this because I don't have experience with it. So sorry I couldn't be more helpful. All right, next up is Ben Everson? Has anyone run a UAL campaign on Drip yet? It seems like there's a low ceiling for monthly email sends. I'm working through this with their support team now. Read, I'm waiting for them to respond to me. Yeah, Ben, I don't know if you're the one who posted in the group earlier, but I did respond to it. It's weird because the screenshot that you shared is different from any other account that I've seen. What's possible is that because you're on a trial right now, it's showing you, an unusual statement about their emails. But typically, from Drip's pricing page, they offer unlimited emails until you hit about 32,000. And if you have 32,000 subscribers, congratulations, and you can probably afford it because at least 1% of those should be customers. So please do keep us posted in the group. If that wasn't you that posted, who I responded to, please go ahead and search recent posts in the group because someone else has the same question as you. But you should be able to get unlimited emails up to over 30,000 people. So hope that helps. All right. Emily Wade Adams says, hi, Corrin. I've seen a lot of posts in the group lately about videos mysteriously disappearing from Facebook either during or after an ad run / boost. Do you guys have any insight on why this is happening and or how to prevent it? I spoke with Facebook's customer service about my own issues. They said my web developer would need to resolve it. That's weird. I realize you may not be able to help, but just thought I'd throw it out there in case you've experienced this or any tips or insights into how this happens. Thank you. So this is interesting. I actually went through this myself. So I'm running an ad right now to free plus shipping and handling. And when I originally launched it, I was just doing it for the limited edition of an album that I've put out. And it's interesting because I only had 40 copies of it, right? And so that's what I put in my ad, and that's what I ran. And I published it to my page. So because it was to warn people anyway, so I may as well just add it to my page as well. And when I eventually it was doing well enough where I sold out of those 40 CDs. And I was like, well, I'm not a liar, so I don't make false scarcity claims. which is something that we talk about a lot. Jack and I talk about it for IndieX, and it's definitely a discussion. But essentially saying I only have 40 copies and then having 500 in your closet and just continuing to fulfill those orders is deceitful, right? And that's what we would call false scarcity, where you're like, I only have one left, and then you sold like 1,000 of them. So I didn't want to keep that post running. I instead created a new post that took out that limited edition copy and took out the fact that I only had 40 left, and just said, hey, I'm giving away this standard version of Gilded, free plus shipping and handling. So I thought, well, I should remove that post from my page so people can't see it. And I deleted the post, which is newbie move. I couldn't believe I did that. So it's interesting how there are things that you can hide and there are things that you can delete. So I do suspect that some people did exactly what I did, which is I didn't necessarily want that post on my page anymore. So I meant to unpublish it, but instead I deleted it entirely. And that ad disappeared. You can't even see it anymore. It had amazing social proof on it. So I was kind of bummed out about that. But so that's a common mistake. And my speculation, I can't understand this customer service person that was talking to you about your web developer. That seems very weird to me. But I do think that there are common things when you're dealing with your page and dealing with your posts that are in the actual posts section of Business Manager, that it's very easy to accidentally delete things. So I'm not saying everybody's stupid or anything, but I do think that some of that is very easily user error. But I also have seen a lot about videos kind of going missing, and I don't have any other troubleshooting ideas for it. Unfortunately, Facebook, there are errors on the platform, and that is something that happens. But usually these things happen when you're making alterations to it after the fact, trying to change its visibility, trying to move it from one thing to another. It can cause errors. So my recommendation would be when you're dealing with videos, just don't change anything about them. Just put a new post in because it seems that there has been a glitch on it lately. So hopefully that's somewhat helpful. All right. I'm going to check it on the comments real quick to make sure. All right. So hello, all you great people. Okay. People are saying it's messed up on YouTube, and then other people saying it's working fine for them. All right, great. Let's see. Okay, Erica's here. One of my favorites. I already got your question, girl. So good. Let's see. I think you answered my question already. Coming up on the watch page. Perfect. Are the disappearing videos cover songs? Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Sunspot. And I'm glad you brought it up. There are many occasions where cover videos are disappearing because they contain licensed material. And I have heard recently that, most of the time or previous to now, cover videos, they would send you, some kind of warning. We've removed your video because it contains copyrighted material, blah, blah, blah. The labels have gotten really a lot more focused on it now because, Facebook still does not offer monetization the way YouTube does. So labels have been really kind of seeking out things on Facebook to try to get these videos shut down. And that said, I know a few people who have had cover videos removed that just disappeared. Facebook didn't notify them. They had all of a sudden their fan finder had no ad attached to it anymore. So that's a really great point. That could be another reason why videos are disappearing. But they really should send a notification. Unfortunately, I don't work at Facebook, so they don't listen to me. But hopefully some of that stuff will start to iron out because it seems to have been a pretty big problem lately. All right. I'm going to reload this page and make sure that I am grabbing My loyal Indies Watch page people first. Oh my gosh, there's so much. Mickey says, yo, what's up, guys? Well, that's a valid question. It's Wednesday. We had some technical difficulties, but now we're all rolling. That's what's up. All right. Ian Goldberg says, ooh, Ian Goldberg has a little check next to his name. He says, question that relates to an above tech stack question. I'm making the switch from Squarespace to WordPress. I just got a Thrive membership and plan to build the site with Thrive Architect. I'm curious about what else I need for a store, and for funnels, it's a bit confusing with all the options. ThriveCart, WooFunnels, Shopify, etc. I'm not 100% sure where all these things overlap in function, and what is the bare minimum I need to get what I want done. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, so Ian, I think I addressed most of those questions. There are a few different purposes for these different things. So if you missed it, scroll on back, because I think it was the third question I answered, the one from Steve Mann, that talks about all the differences in these things. But essentially, if you're on WordPress, you could probably use WooCommerce as a store and WooFunnels as a very linear sales path. And both can be advantageous in their own strategies, and they can be advantageous when used together, but they don't have to be. So that's the rundown. You can also rewind and go see a little bit more detail about it. All right, so now Mickey's question. Question about some of our deals, not really a campaign question per se. Is the CD Baby deal offered for indies only for the standard singles albums, or are they for the pro options as well? I'm releasing some singles in packs of 2 or 3 like vinyls used to be, but paying album costs for singles sounds daunting, so I can use all the discounts I can get. That's a good question, and I will actually flag Circa is the one who negotiated that with our buddies at CD Baby. So I'm going to get with him and find out that answer for you, and I'll probably have Gracie post it in the group, because she's a ninja and has all the answers, is source of so many answers. So yeah, I'll coordinate with the team and we'll get an answer. But I think it may only be for standard. So that's my speculation. I'll get confirmation for you and we'll post it in the Indie Pro group so that you're aware. All right, we got Only Bricks, Corrin with an exclamation point. First off, shout out to you and the rest of the team. Love what you are doing. Thank you. We ran and continue to run at minimum budget our first fan finder back in April. I think it's doing pretty well. 250,000 total views, almost 1,000 reactions, 70 comments, 140 shares, barely any haters, almost 10,000 75% views between the first audience and the lookalike. You can check it out on this place on Facebook. Question is, what do we do now? In watching the Greenlight Warmth Boosting training, it seems like we're still too green to follow that protocol. We have 600 Spotify followers, 400 plus Facebook followers, and 100 plus subscribers on YouTube. We have a new single coming out in September and plan on doing a pre-save with a prize incentive for that, and we've already created some video content in support. Should we be using the new video content to continue to find fans, or maybe use it to retarget the 75% views audience as a continuation of our introduction? Thanks, Joseph. Wow. Okay, so lots of stats in here, but I think what it boils down to is you run a fan finder and then, right? Because the stats aren't ever our goal, right? And I know that you're providing me stats so that I understand the context. I don't think you're trying to pull a flex, right? But yeah, that's the idea. Like, what do we do after that? So obviously, we touch on stuff in the buddy system that comes after introduction, right? Email collection is typically the next thing. But I would tell you, here's the thing: Greenlight Warmth Boosting isn't just intended to reach your existing followers, your existing Instagram followers, your existing Facebook page likes and followers. It's actually intended to hit everybody who's engaged with your content in the last certain amount of time. So depending on when you started running this fan finder, you could run a follow-up Greenlight Warmth Boost, for example, with any of your content, just something that is not asking them for anything. It's just content that's interesting. and running that to your 75% video views, which is kind of what you're talking about here, is, retargeting those people so that they get to know you better. This kind of serves the education phase, which is what comes after introduction, right? Introduction, they first see you. But if they never see anything from you again, are they going to remember you? Are they still going to be interested, right? So Greenlight warmth boosting is a really great way to have that education happen, because they start just seeing you all the time. And they're like, oh yeah, I saw that band. And then when you feed them an ad, for example, to get emails, which is in the permission phase, at that point, they've seen enough of you where it's not a stretch, right? They didn't have to be a huge fan in the beginning. So that's really the intent of Greenlight warmth boosting, or it's one of the intents of Greenlight warmth boosting, because you would be targeting those people who have engaged with you, even if they haven't followed your page or followed your profile. So I would recommend that. I would recommend doing some Greenlight warmth boosting to all of those people who have watched that video, and then maybe feeding them, 1 or 2 posts just on a very low budget, and then, getting an album launch or some kind of permission bribe put together. And actually, if you reference the most recent arc that we're on in the Creative Juice podcast, we talk all about permission and ways to develop, bribes that make sense for your brand, and figure out clever things instead of, email for download or that kind of thing. So that's what I would recommend your next steps be. Hopefully that's helpful. Cool. All right. Let's relaunch this. I have to refresh the page every time I want to see more comments. All right. So Mitch Wilson asks, are you still suggesting to send ads only to 5 Greenlight countries? Has the bot situation changed? So Mitch, here, 5 Greenlight countries, the English-speaking countries, especially if your primary language is English, is the safest thing to do, right? Partially because language barrier, right, which can produce some disconnect in when you're sending things internationally. But also, I think there's a point where we have to consider as musicians, like, okay, I want worldwide reach. I want people to know who I am everywhere. But at the same time, it really can depend a lot on your budget. If you only have like $5 a day to spend on a fan finder, diluting that budget to spread to more countries is probably not going to be advantageous for you, because not that many dollars is not going to give Facebook enough data to gather avatars of any particular country, right? Because it's just spread out. So that's my first kind of weigh in on that. Secondly, I think Circa put that in the training to make sure that it was like the absolute easiest thing to follow. If you go into the Greenlight warmth boosting training, I believe it might be in the last lesson. To be honest, I don't totally remember, but I have a Google Doc that is linked there, and I am live updating that every single day. I'm looking at my ads. I'm, checking in on IndieX clients' ads, and kind of, getting an assessment of what countries are, on the Greenlight list and which ones need to be removed, and where we're seeing, errant action happening on the ads. So I actually advertise to several more countries than those 5 countries listed in the initial fan finder training. But I would say only feel the need to expand countries if you have a hefty budget. Even if you're running $20 a day, diluting that budget across tons of countries may not make sense. If you are a new artist, also, chances are your best sales are going to be within your own country. So if you are US based, you can ship anywhere in the US for at most like $3.20. So if you charge a flat rate of $5 shipping, that's going to be cheap. That's going to be easy to sell to people because they're not going to feel like they're paying excessive shipping. When I try to sell internationally, before, I have people now in Europe that help me, but when I was trying to ship to Europe before, I was having to charge $14 in shipping for even a CD, which is really light, because of just the sheer cost of international shipping. And in the U.S. charges way more for shipping than many other countries do for international. So it may not behoove you to spread those dollars, right, which is diluting the data, and then also make it harder to acquire customers in those countries, right? Because they're going to have to pay more for shipping, which means your purchase conversions are going to cost more. So it's saving you down the road is the short version. I wouldn't suggest feeling like you have to go international. Now, for those of you who are in countries that are not in, the 5 green light countries, or even on my green light warmth living sheet is what I like to call it. If you are in currently one of the countries that is not on that list, there are also instructions in that list that tell you how to try to minimize your bot traffic. Let's say you're in France, and France is not a green light country right now. So there's indications in that sheet on how to try to navigate that. But that's what I would point you to that resource, because I do live update it. It's very easy for me to just change it on the fly, and I'm constantly putting more information in there. So hopefully that helps. All right, Nick is next. He has heard the artist Russ talk a lot about TuneCore. What is good about TuneCore that other services don't have? That's so funny, Nick, because we were just talking about Russ at Inspo this morning, and he was a topic. He was kind of the one who spurred our conversation this morning, so it's funny. So TuneCore is what I use for everything. Nope, I lied. I have one single that I've distributed through AWOL, through Cobalt Music, which I went and visited them, met with them actually last year to talk about marketing. And they were like, yeah, you should try, putting out some music on our platform. And I was like, okay. But other than that, I have used TuneCore since 2009, I want to say. For me, the benefits of TuneCore, firstly, I am very protective of any commission-based thing in my artist ecosystem. I do not like commission, just on a sheer principle of it. And I know that, it's just like a manager says, if you're not making money, I don't make money. And they present that as a benefit, right? If you're not making money from streaming, then any of these other services that take commission, you're not really risking much. But if you blow up, you're going to pay them a lot of money. So I never want to be in a situation where I have to feel begrudged that I have to pay someone money now that I finally, after investing tens of thousands of dollars into my own career, now I owe this guy, 15% or 10% of it, whatever. So that's just me. I'm a purist there. I'm not necessarily saying everybody needs to think that way. That's just my point of view. The other thing about TuneCore, I have had, because of my Army experiences, which I'm not going to go into because I talk about it a lot, but essentially I've had music released under all kinds of different artist names with different branding. And it used to not be as easy to, reattribute those tracks to another artist. So, now you can pretty much just enter the ISRC for any track, and it'll automatically just, populate on the artist that you submitted it to. But it didn't used to be that easy, and TuneCore really helped me through that. Their customer service is, human and very accessible. I never have to wait more than 24 hours to hear from them. So, that is another reason why I've loved TuneCore. And I also like TuneCore's publishing, which ironically does charge commission. But all publishers are going to charge commission. So I don't mind that. And they're really great at, claiming copyright if your music is used on any YouTube or Twitch channels, stuff like that, claiming monetization on your behalf, etc. Now, there are plenty of other services that also do that. TuneCore, I know exactly what I'm going to pay them. I know what to expect. I know the kind of service. And so I've just stuck with them, I feel like a lot of other models either don't have the same support channels, and, there are other elements that I just like best about TuneCore. That said, if you are, for example, if you're releasing singles on a regular basis, TuneCore is $9.99 for a single per year. So if you're starting to go with a rapid release plan, TuneCore might not be the best option because you're going to pay $10 for every single of those singles, every year, right? So that might not be a reasonable solution for you. And in that case, something like DistroKid that allows unlimited uploads for a yearly fee, that might make more sense. Now, the customer service is not great because most of their process is automated. It's run by, machines. So there's not a lot of human access there. CD Baby's kind of in the middle of that, right? Because they're a huge company. And so, their support channels get weighed down because they have so many users. So it really just kind of depends on your situation, what's best. But hopefully that presents to you the information that I have about TuneCore that makes me like it and that Russ also references. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to check in on the comments right now because y'all be chatting and I'm missing it. Uncomely says, how's your Submit Hub situation? Many replied, no, sir. I did get on a couple of playlists, but I would mention that the music that I'm releasing right now is really out of the box, right? The remixes have done pretty well on Submit Hub because there's a lot of glitch and IDM and even some deep house, right? So I've gotten on my remix stuff has gotten on some decent digital electronic music playlists. My orchestral ones not done so great. And I think it's because it's a rock singer over cinematic soundtrack music. Like there's just not great placement for it. It's definitely not like chill vibes, coffee house vibes, So it doesn't really fit any great mood spectrum, which is what a lot of playlisting is really centered around now, right? Like no vocal electronic music or vocal electronic music or dance music or, coffee house music or love beats music, right? So, I still think that Submit Hub is a great platform. I do think that it can be more difficult if your music has less mood to it, right? Like if it kind of doesn't fit those like typical playlist vibes. But I did get some blog write-ups from it. Those have been a little bit better than the playlisting ones. So I would say that if your music is a bit eclectic or doesn't really fit into this whole mood thing that's going on Spotify, you could still get some good coverage from blogs and write-ups. And so maybe just filter those Spotify specific submissions out and just use the blog portion of it. So yeah, that's how that's going. All right, Mitch, I got your question. Thanks for posting it in both places so I would not miss it. I got you. We have a brand new Indie Pro Facebook user. Yay! Welcome. You're working through the Buddy System videos right now. Question: should I push back the tentative release of September 4th back a few weeks to begin a better marketing plan? It's funny. I would say yes, right? If you're just digging in, you might find some great tools to help you do it better, right? It's funny because we say that all the time. Any kind of partnership or sponsorship or press, right? If you're getting, featured on some kind of radio interview or TV program, or if there's sudden visibility on your brand for some reason, we're always like, you want the infrastructure set up for this incoming traffic, right? You want to know that you're gathering as much data as possible, you're gathering as much contact information as possible before that happens. And sometimes you don't know that's going to happen. So that's why we, really stress the infrastructure ecosystem build ahead of other things. That said, if you've already shared with hundreds of people that this album is coming and they're expecting it, you don't want to let them down, right? You can push it, but sometimes it's not great. So it really depends on, you said the tentative release of 9.4. So I think it also depends on what you're talking about releasing. Is it a single? If it's a single, you're probably not risking much. If it's an album, you might not make another full album for a little while. So I think it really depends on the context there. So that's another factor to consider. Uncommonly says CD Baby still charges barcode fee. Bleh. I don't like that. I don't like anybody who charges me for a barcode. TuneCore doesn't. But also, so you guys know, you can generate 100 UPCs for cheap. Amazon, people who resell on Amazon or are using Amazon FBA, they have hundreds of UPCs that they need to put into the system. They are required to have a UPC to sell on Amazon, and you can generate hundreds of them for cheap. So I would always recommend getting your own UPC and having that attached. And another thing to note is that if the audio is identical, right? If you have the same audio on cassette and CD and vinyl and digital, it's all the same UPC. You don't have to get a new one. So, that's another way to kind of consolidate your costs. If you are getting a new, if you just change the artwork, you can use the same UPC as the other one. So that's something else to consider just to save money, because I think some people don't realize that. So, yeah. So hopefully that is helpful. All right, Mickey says, are there any suggested differences between the way you communicate and run your SMS text list via your email list? Should I be using these two channels differently? Absolutely. Yeah, so with SMS, firstly, you're going to want to keep it under a certain number of characters. 160, I think, is considered good practice. Otherwise, it will send in multiple texts, which, it's fine. When I'm on a lot of SMS lists, and so when I get more than one, I'm like, okay, but I prefer to make it short and sweet. If people are new and haven't been on my text list for very long, I'm like, hey, Corrin Campbell here. And then I have to squeeze the rest of it into the remaining 100 characters. So typically what I do is either I will do one of two things. And I use ManyChat to manage my SMS, so it's a little different. If you use ManyChat, you can actually send them a link to an entire flow in ManyChat that has this like back and forth conversation. It does open it in Facebook Messenger, but that's a way that you can add to the message without feeling like you have to squish it in a text. When I run my text, I usually try to think about the same thing that I would use as like an email subject, an email headline, right? I just want to get the basic gist, and I want to give them just enough to be interested, but not so much that they feel fully informed. Because if they feel like they got all the information from the text, hey, 25% off this t-shirt, click here. They already have the information. So they're not curious. So unless they want that t-shirt, they're not going to click on it, right? And you lose that opportunity to engage with them further. So I would suggest thinking about SMS in very short format. Keep it as clean and to the point, and always make sure to communicate who you are. And that would be for SMS. And for email, it's obviously far more flexible. Sometimes for my SMS list, I will also create a landing page that is talking about all the things that I would talk about on my email list. And for some of my SMS subscribers, I'll actually send them to the permalink for the email. That's another way to be quick, right? Depending on what provider you're using, you can get every time you get an email that's a subscription, it probably has a link at the very top that says view this in a web page. So you can get that static link, and then you could share that link anywhere, and anyone, whether they're on your email list or not, will be able to see the page. So I would recommend, something like that if you don't want to build an entire landing page for that kind of thing. Hope that helps. I say that a lot. Okay, so I'm going to refresh that page, and while I do, I'm going to check on the comments. So I see the video question again. I addressed that earlier in this, so go check it out. Oh, I missed your answer live. Got it, but thanks for breaking down the funnels versus store applications. I was stuck thinking it was a store plus funnel cart add-on, not that they were literally completely separate things. Yeah, absolutely. And you know why? I don't blame you for being confused on that, because we do talk about it in an add-on fashion, typically. We very rarely talk about just having one or the other. We might talk some about having a store static or having a store alone and how that's not enough. So then we talk about adding a funnel thing to it. So I understand why that might be confusing, is like, well, which is the thing that we should have? And it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be an add-on to a store. It can be its own tool. So, but yeah, I totally understand that. Calmly says, send it to me then. I like weird stuff and I will share it. We are eclectic both. Maybe we can collaborate one day. Check my song Black Flowers. All right. I'll check it out, but hold on that promo. Just kidding. All right, so Stands on Sapphire says, we're working on an album launch and done 3 successful fan finders in the last few months. Should we start a new fan finder for the album launch, or is it okay to use the momentum of the previous ones? Yeah, Cirque and I have talked about this on the podcast as well. Content doesn't get old. It just doesn't, right? It's the first thing people are seeing from you. The ad that I'm running right now is selling an album from 2013 and using video from Warped Tour 2014. You know what I mean? So I don't think that stuff gets old. I think whatever is going to represent you well and has proven as successful in the past, keep using it. Just keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. Now, content does fatigue, which may, when we talk about fatiguing, we're referencing that a specific audience has seen something so many times, right? And the audience is not responding to that ad anymore. So if you are reusing the same content, I would recommend keeping the audience fresh. Don't just feed it to a lookalike of your 75% views forever, because that's going to run out and eventually you're not going to be getting results from it. But yeah, keep running that. I don't think you need, now, just to clarify, you've done 3 successful fan finders, but that may not be enough to get the album launch going. So I wouldn't start a new fan finder for the album launch. I think you can use that fan finder, but you'll need a separate ad for the launch itself, right? I'm kind of assuming that that's what you mean anyway, but just wanted to make sure to cover it. Okay. Someone said, whoa, almost missed it. Yeah, that's my fault because I sent an email late and then it didn't deliver right away. So sorry about that. Okay. My plugin is not showing me who's talking to me, and that bugs me because I want to call you by your names. So I want to see who this next person is that wrote that comment so I can address you by your name. Okay. Let me enlarge this so I can get to the comments. Okay. Of course it's TJ. I should have known. TJ says, I'm doing a TuneSpeak campaign to lead into and slightly overlap with a release. Should I do an education sequence for those that opted in for email? And should I make an offer to just them outside of the one at the end of the album launch? Totally whatever you want. There's no wrong answer. Now, if you're asking for my opinion, I'm going to give it. So I definitely think that when I am sending people through a funnel right now, basically at the end of the offer on the confirmation page, I'm like, hey, check out my TuneSpeak campaign. Or I give them 3 options, essentially, where it's like, hey, are you in the shopping mood? Here's a merch discount. Go straight to my store. Get your retail therapy on. That's offer 1. It has a link with the discount code to my Shopify, and it sends them there with the discount code embedded. The other option is to go Gilded, which is the album launch. So an album launch I built 4 years ago, but it's related to the album they just bought. So I send them there. And at that point, I already have their email, I already have their contact information, so it's pretty easy to just insert them into that campaign. Thirdly, I have the TuneSpeak campaign. And the TuneSpeak campaign offers, I don't know if you've been to my TuneSpeak campaign, because I know some of you indies are checking it, but there are all kinds of actions, from Spotify actions, Facebook and Instagram actions, pre-saves. You can send them to links, right? If you want to, I actually send them, first off, there's my general website, and then there's the promotion for CC points, which is my Facebook Messenger points program, where I'm sending mailbox, like in real life mailbox surprises to people who complete level 1. So, I mean, just having all these things ready and present, I think that's really what matters, right? And so anytime you're sending traffic anywhere, give them things to do to get to know you better. Now, as far as offering them something specific outside of, the end of the launch, I think it's actually kind of, what's worked for me is to have one deal running at any given point and nothing different. I should rephrase that. One deal that not everybody sees and one deal that everybody sees. So if somebody comes to my website, I'm like, here's this deal, If someone sees an ad, here's this deal, But if it's for my email list, my SMS list, I give those people exclusive deals. That's half the reason, or a big portion of the reason why they're on the list. Because I'm like, look, I send things first and better to these lists. So that's usually how I segment it. But I don't really do things like, I don't really worry about the timing of things as much. I just make sure that I have one in each column present at any given time. And as people peruse my site or go through my Facebook Messenger or sign up for my SMS list or whatever they do, there's something present. So that, I don't know if that totally answers your question, TJ, but I hope that kind of gives you some guidance as to how I would do it if I were you. All right. So, James says releasing a debut album. Gotcha. All right. Chris says, what's the easiest way to do email capture? So, Chris, to answer your question, I need a little more information. Are you talking about from a tech point of view? Are you talking about from a offer/bribe point of view? Let me know what you're speaking to a little bit more specifically, and I will weigh in. All right. How's this Indies Live comment section going? We got more. Okay, Mickey asks, for FanFinder, I'm not on that training yet, but should we be targeting the entire country, or should we narrow where we're targeting to a region? Are there any suggested differences between the way you communicate in your SMS text list, which you already asked? Cool. I don't know if you edited that or if I just missed it the first time around, but if you rewind a little bit, I addressed countries, including staying regional or going international, and how we're dealing with that as of right now, which this stuff changes constantly, which is why I made that document in a Google Doc, because it'll change. So this way I can just edit it, as things change. I can just update that document, and you can trust that it's always going to be, the most accurate live version of what's going on. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. So back in the comments, let's see. Gosh, I'm so late. Oops. Just wanted to say I miss Corrin's Corner. I hope you're back with us soon. I appreciate that. Yeah, sorry. Corrin's Corner has been on a small hiatus. Right now, I am working on many things, but the most exciting one is that I am developing the new split of Founder Foundations, which is our, the Indie Founder class, and we're going to be offering a grassroots version and an advanced version. So for those of you indies who are like, I've done this, I'm gonna push you. I'm gonna bring you up even further. So we're developing an application process so that everyone who signs up for Founder is gonna be, put in these different tracks. And we're gonna get really heavy in the advanced section, like getting into your catalogs and advanced funnel work and lots of the data stuff, and it's going to be great. So I'm sorry that I've been out of Corrin's Corner lately. There's a lot, but I will be back because there's a lot to update you guys on. So I will be back soon. All right. Okay. Stands on Sapphire says roughly 30K warm audience in the past 365 days. Yeah. So feed them some education, feed them some boosts. Just, posts that are reflective of your personality, right? Don't even feel like it has to be really deep content, because for Greenlight Warmth Boosting, it doesn't. You just want them to see your face or your, instrumentation or whatever about you, your personality. You just want them to see it over and over and over to the point where they recognize you. And then when you say, hey, sign up for this thing that's cool, they'll be like, yeah, I know that person and I will sign up for that. Know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would go ahead and do that. All right, next question. It seems that my fan finder video is getting a lot of engagement from 65-plus-year-old men, which is not at all the kind of audience I want to get. Besides, in that video, I'm playing my song with a young singer, and I'm afraid of the old horny man. Ew! What can I do? Should I just not target that audience at all, even though it's the one that's doing better? Yeah, so we've seen this especially, it's been there historically, but we've especially seen it in COVID days, which is that older men are cheaper to get longer views. They just watch more video. And I've seen this be the case across many different types of genres. And so Facebook is automatically going to lean that way as soon as you go for video views, unless you are distinctly not a good match. But I can't tell you how many videos I've seen that from. So that said, firstly, I would tell you that I have two major audiences in my music, and one is the 13 to 24-year-old girls, and the other is 45-plus men. The 45-plus men account for 80% of my revenue every month. So don't be ageist is my first recommendation. My second recommendation is that, again, actually, if you go to the Greenlight Warmth Boosting training and go to that, living document that I have in there, what you want to do is think about, in the same way that I have outlined ways to control country spend, you can also do this to age and gender. So if you're like, look, I don't want to disclude them entirely, but I also don't want them to get all of my ad spend, you can put them in a separate ad set and limit that budget to only a certain amount per day. And then that will mostly guarantee, that Facebook will spend the rest of the cash on everybody else. So that's one way that you can keep them in your campaign without them competing, so hard with all of your other ad sets. And I do that frequently. I do that all the time. When I'm running funnels for new audience, I have, say I have 3 ad sets that have been running great for the last month, and I decide I want to add a new audience, another ad set. Facebook's not going to give that thing any money if the other 3 have been doing well. Facebook's going to be like, I got what I need right here. I don't need this guy. I got all of it. So what I will do in that case is I'll put a minimum, $10, $15, whatever it is, on that new ad set to make Facebook feel it out. Because otherwise Facebook's going to optimize for the fact that, it's like, I know what works. Like, why would I try something else? I know this works. It's kind of like I am with TuneCore. I know TuneCore works, so I'm just sticking with it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. It just means it's what I know, and I know it gets me the results I want, so that's all I need. The algorithm does the same thing. So that's one way that you can manage it, is like segment those guys out into a separate ad set and put a minimum or maximum daily spend on, however that's relevant to the way you have it structured. And that way you can keep any given country, any age, any gender, any specifics that you're running in any campaign, you can keep that particular demographic from going crazy, So, which is commonly what we see when we're running to multiple countries too. We want more even spend, so we manually take care of that. So hopefully that gives you some instruction on how to deal with that. But yeah, I'm familiar with older men just doing more video watching. I don't know what it is. Okay. TJ is the TuneSpeak. TJ is the TuneSpeak. It sounds like a robot. Okay. Okay. So now Mickey Young is saying, geez, now I'm wondering if I should hold back on my first few single releases so I can spend a couple of months on fan finders. Here's the thing, Mickey. I mean, again, it's singles, right? So you're not losing a ton when you're releasing singles. You're not losing just a crazy amount of opportunity there. And there's no reason why you can't release a single and be running a fan finder. They don't have to be separate from each other, because you could release a video for that single. And especially if you were to do like a standard fan finder, like an acoustic performance or some other version of that, and then, comment below the video. Don't put it in the post itself, but comment just below it when you're running an ad to it. It says, check out the full version here, or whatever. Check out whatever genre you are. And you could still send people out to listen to the new single, right? So don't ever feel like you have to keep them totally separate. That doesn't have to happen. Okay. I got to that one already. Since January for all of our singles. Yeah, nice. COVID days, older men are cheaper will be my new album name. Oh my gosh. Here for it. Love it. All right. Cool, guys. Well, I'm going to check the page one last time, but I'm getting ready to wrap this up. You all have been just amazing and wonderful. I feel like I haven't been able to do a Q&A for a while now, so this was fun. Okay. Kyle Kraft says, hey, Corrin, is there a way to show number of participants in a TuneSpeak campaign as opposed to the number of entries on the front of it? I'm thinking someone seeing 2 million entries might discourage them from signing up, thinking they may not have a good chance of winning without realizing there can be thousands of entries per participant. Yeah, not on the front end, but I haven't heard from anyone who's running. I have about 1,000 participants in mine as of this week. And I have a pretty great conversion on the page. I haven't really seen any evidence that could be a problem. Like usually if they want to play, they're going to play. So, but yeah, there is not, we have a call with TuneSpeak on tomorrow, the next day. We have a call with TuneSpeak to hopefully get an indie deal, which would be great because you all know I'm a huge fan of TuneSpeak. So I can ask and clarify, but I'm pretty sure that's not an option. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you have a cool prize, the people who are going to want to join are going to want to join, So I wouldn't stress about that. I think it'll be okay. All right. Mickey, again, and this is the last one you get, Mickey. I haven't taken the content blueprint course yet. I do a weekly live stream on Instagram called Mickey Mondays. It's all about freestyle rapping and audience engagement. It gets pretty low viewership, but it's been one of my calling cards in the past. I was listening to the Creative Juice podcast on the Buddy System, podcast series on the Buddy System. Got it. And I remember you and Circa mentioning that consistent content is a good route for people that don't have budget to run ads, that take care of the education process. Mickey Mondays only happens on IG at the moment. Any tips on what I can do to make that work for my education step in the Buddy System, how I can do it? It doesn't seem like they're super productive at the moment, and I'm going to revisit my previous claim, which is that Greenlight Worth was saying, I get that you don't have a lot of budget to run ads for the education process, but you literally can run green light warm depending on the size of your audience and how expensive your audience is, which on IG it's very cheap usually, for anybody. Very few people have expensive IG audiences. You can run $1, $2 a day. You could do it for 5 days just to get anybody who's interacted with your page or your IG profile. In this case, anybody who's seen that, you can feed them the existing post for your next one really easily, on a very low budget. So I think that would be your best bet. If you can invest anything into advertising, get more eyeballs and get more warm eyeballs on your stuff. Because people who like things will share them, and eventually that just grows. That's something else that came up in Inspo this morning. We have multiple artists who, their bread and butter entirely is, the fact that they started recurring content, and they did it for a year, for 2 years before it was even productive for them, before they even had more than 100 people show up, before they had 30 people show up. They did it for so long, so you just got to stick with it. And if you can put a couple dollars on maybe some of your best of, even if they're, a month old, 2 months old, whatever, that's a great way to, prioritize just getting people in, right? And making sure that people recognize you. Again, we want to be omnipresent. We want to be everywhere that these people are looking, because they will remember our face, and they'll either hate us and block the ad and hide ad, or they'll come to love us, right? So that's my last piece on that. Okay, Uncomely did squeeze in one. Mickey's cut off. Uncomely. So he says, you're using reach campaign or engagement goal for greenlight warmth boosting. So I first start with engagement. Now we have had some indies that are like, I put it in there and it's not firing. It's spending $0 a day. It seems stuck. It won't go. And when that happens, it means that your audience is too expensive, right? So for those of you who are not familiar with CPM, it's the cost per 1,000 people in your audience. The smaller your audience is, not always, but usually the smaller your audience is, the more expensive it gets. So my CPM, the cost per 1,000 impressions, is very high. I'm in the $12 to $16 range, So in that situation, if it cost me $12 to, let's round up, let's say $15. If it cost me $15 to reach 1,000 people, and my audience is, 600 or whatever, it's just going to cost too much per day for Facebook to use my $1 a day advertising to actually reach anybody, because my place in the auction is here, but the cost of them and every other advertiser who's competing for their eyeballs is up here. So that's why that ad won't fire, because it's not competitive in the auction, which is all of us advertisers vying for the placements in somebody's news feed. How do we get to see them? And it's because we're paying for it, right? How do we get them to see our stuff? So that's a long thing, but I've seen that question a lot in the pro group, so I wanted to address it. So the remainder of that, I will start with engagement. Engagement is more expensive, period. Just is. So if you have an engagement goal that is not firing in your campaign, I would change it to to reach. Because at that point, reach is far less expensive than engagement. It widens the pool from which Facebook can choose people, right? Because if you choose engagement, Facebook's looking for people who engage. They're not just looking for your audience that's eligible. They're also looking for people who comment on things, who watch videos if you have a video campaign. So they're looking for those people, whereas if you do reach, you're just going to reach as many eyeballs as possible. So I don't recommend reach right out the gate. And Circa and I actually have varying thoughts on the strategy for this. A lot of times in certain pieces of things, circle start at the bottom and work his way up, whereas I start at the top and work my way down. So, for example, if I have a sales campaign, I'll run for conversions of sales first. Now, for the algorithm to optimize, it needs to fire 50 times in a week. So if I don't get 50 purchases in a week, that means I shot too high. So the next thing I would go for is landing page views, right? Because that's the next step down. So I would go to that. If I didn't get 50 of those a week, then I would go to clicks, right? Which is a traffic campaign. So in the same way, that's how I exercise engagement campaigns. If I'm running a green light warmth boost or any other engagement campaign and it's not firing or it's not doing very well, it's not optimizing with 50 events a week, I'll just take it the next step down. Reach is the bottom. It's the bottom step. So for me, it's the last thing I would try. So I hope that explained a little bit more about how those things are structured. I think we're done, guys. We're done. I need more coffee. Look at how much of my coffee's left. It's dripping all over me. Condensation. Anyway, thanks for your patience. I was late. You waited. I'm appreciative. I can't wait to see you guys. I think it'll be my turn again in 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm so stoked for it. But you guys are doing great things. I love these questions. I really can tell that you all are invested in the things that you are really seeking right now. And obviously, if you have any questions, leave them in the group. Gracie is constantly flagging us for, as much information as we can get you guys as possible. So I'm stoked to see you in the group. All right. So have a wonderful rest of your week. And of course, stay indie, y'all. Bye.